Welcome to Investor's Guide. As you can see, we've stepped out of the studio this week, and we've stepped out because we're doing a very special show with the author of this book, A Direct Take. It's been written by Nilesh Shah, the Managing Director and CEO of Axis Capital, and I'm really happy to have him here. Nilesh, thank you for joining us. I looked through the book over the weekend, and it's really interesting. It's very different from all of the other investment books in the market. There are really interesting, colorful illustrations. You've taken a lot of ideas from real life. You've taken a lot of illustrations from real life. And it seems like something that's an easy read, that's easy to digest. You're a busy man. How did you find the time to do this, and what prompted you to sit down and write a book?
So, me and my colleague Madan have been touring the country over the last 20 years in different capacities, but after coming to Axis Bank over the last 2-3 years, we have been meeting various customers across the country, and every time the questions remained the same, and every time we tried to explain in a jargon-free language, in a simple man's language, they were able to grab it very easily. And then we all thought that why not convert this common man's jargon-free communication into something which can reach out to many more people. And we all worked overtime, but finally the fruit is in front of us.
Well, it's a fantastic book. It's available on stands right now, and I just want to ask you a couple of questions from what I saw in the book. You kept talking, and this is an idea that spreads across the entire book, the risk of inflation. And a lot of us don't consider the risk of inflation when we leave money lying in our bank accounts or in a fixed deposit, and we think it's making 8%, it's making 8.5% as it is right now. Take us through it for our viewers who are not familiar with it. Take us through the risk of inflation, eating away at our corpus, or eating away at our savings.
So there is a real life experience of someone whom I knew, and he wanted to buy a 4-bedroom hall kitchen apartment in Mumbai, and at that time he had say 1 crore rupee worth of money with him, and he was bargaining and kept the money in liquid funds and fixed deposits. Now over 5 years period he couldn't decide to buy the flat. The money remained in fixed deposits. He kept on paying tax on it. Now over 5 years period the flat prices went up. That's inflation. The bank deposits and liquid fund did give a return, but it gave a return which was below inflation. And today he'll be lucky if he can buy a 2-bedroom hall kitchen apartment. That 50% loss from 4 BHK to 2 BHK is because you didn't invest wisely. You saved correctly, but you didn't invest wisely. The inflation is a silent enemy. It just keeps on eroding your purchasing power. And which is why it's so important to graduate from being a good saver to be a good investor too.
If we're talking about beating inflation, is equity the only asset class that will beat inflation? Is it the absence of equity that caused him to, fall behind?
I think the serious problems which savers face to become an investor is not related to equity investment or non-equity investment. It is related to first financial plan or an objective. Most people don't know why they are saving. So if I tell them you invest in particular stock, they will buy it. If you tell them you invest in this particular bond, they will buy it. But there's no financial plan. Like, when you are falling ill, you go to a family doctor. But most of the investors, most of the savers don't have a family financial planner. So they are saving without any plan, without any direction. Second, when they save, it's more of a momentum rather than fundamental. So they are always driving their car looking at the rear view mirror rather than front view mirror. So equities gave great return last year, I should invest in equities. If equities gave negative return last year, I should invest in bonds, something like that. So when you drive looking at only rear view mirror, you're bound to make a mishap, and which is what happens with most of the savers.
Well, if we look at our rear view mirror right now, a lot of investors are very disappointed. They write to us on a regular basis saying, we've been investing for the last 5 years. Where has the market gone in the last 5 years? And in the book, you've talked about what the returns have been over 24 years, over 14 years. What about the last 5 years and the 5 years to come? Because we're currently in a very interesting part of the market. It seems to be running up. There's a lot of talk about how much the new government will have an impact on where the market goes over the next 2 years. But for those of us who are long-term investors, who are going to stay invested at least till retirement, will all of this matter? Should we just continue to put away our money?
So again, when we talk about 5 years, it's a point-to-point comparison. 2008 market was 20 times forward earning. 2014 market is just 13 times forward earning. So you are taking the peak of the market to the bottom of the market and saying that, look, in this period, I'm still flat. I mean, you should be happy that you are flat, because normally you should be way down in this kind of measurement. Second, even in this period, if you had done SIP, you would have still generated a better return than most of the fixed income investors. So within the last 5 years period, where markets have been derated from a valuation point of view, by following the commonsensical principle of regular investment, systematic investment, asset allocation, you would have still generated a return which would have been better than inflation, which would have been better than what broad market has given.
Well, you gave a very interesting illustration in the book where you talked about shopping during sales to illustrate the whole SIP buy on a regular basis. Take us through, I want you to explain this for our viewers, that how that example works and how buying during market dips or buying at regular intervals helps us make volatility our friend, you said.
So my whole concept about maintaining physical health and maintaining financial health is same. So we all maintain our physical health by going to doctor when we are ill. So you have to go to a financial planner when you need advice on your financial health. The doctor gives us medicine, and we don't take 3 days course in one go because you want to get well very soon. You still take SIP in medicines morning, afternoon, evening. The same thing you have to do on your investment side. So that's the concept of regular investment and financial planning advice. The third thing comes in terms of asset allocation. We all eat food to maintain our physical health, and typically our diet is well balanced. There's some roti, dal, chapati, chawal. Now the same thing you have to do it on your financial health, which is debt, equity, commodity, currency. So whatever we are doing to maintain our physical health in terms of regular investment and in terms of asset allocation, we have to do for maintaining our financial health.
We've also in the book talked about picking good blue chip stocks, picking good mutual funds and putting together a basket. Now for anybody who's investing right now, give us a guideline on how we decide how much of our money goes into mutual funds, how much we want to put directly into stocks, and within that then break it up over this is the fund that I want to invest in plus this stock, and all together that forms a healthy plate of food. How do we manage that sort of an allocation?
So the general thumb of rule is that 100 minus your age is allocation towards risky assets. And risky assets includes equities. Surprisingly, gold also is a risky asset, and real estate, whereas the safe asset includes bank deposits and fixed income instruments. And in the book, we have also explained something called smart SIP, which effectively means buy more when markets are cheap and buy less when markets are expensive. The simple commonsensical adjustments from SIP to smart SIP will end up increasing your portfolio return significantly.
What about those of us who decide to put our money directly into stocks, who want to be able to pick a stock? And you've said in the book, you should put the kind of research that you would when you were picking a groom for your daughter, when you're picking a stock. Ideally, as a retail investor, as a long-term retail investor, how many stocks should we have in our portfolios? And how should we pick that mix of 10 or 12 or 15 stocks?
So, couple of things which retail investors should remember. One, don't pick up stocks more than what you can afford to research. So treat them as your kids, because whether your kids take care of your retirement or not, but a well-picked stock will certainly take care of your retirement. So be careful about that. Second, your timing the market doesn't make money. Your time in the market makes money. So be long-term. And third, buy those stocks which, if tomorrow you become a Rip Van Winkle and sleep for 10 years, after waking up, you won't be surprised, why did I take that decision? So effectively buy companies which you believe will remain in existence after 10 years. So take this whole pain of short-term investment out. Now, even in stocks, you can buy on an SIP basis rather than at one go. All the stocks have their own up and down cycle. And when you have picked up a blue chip company and the stock has become cheaper, you should be willing to buy more rather than panicking and selling it out.
All right, so Nilesh makes it all seem so easy to do, but he is a man who's had a fair amount of success with this sort of thing in the past. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll ask him about gold, about real estate and fixed deposits. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching Investor's Guide with ET Now. We're with Nilesh Shah and he's teaching us the fundamentals of investing from his book, A Direct Take, that's available in bookstores right now. Nilesh, I want to talk to you about gold. It is, beyond a shadow of doubt, our favorite investment as Indians. And I'm putting investment in inverted commas here because you don't believe it's an investment, do you? And you discourage people from putting a lot of money in there.
So it's not that I'm always against gold. And I must admit my failure in public that I've never been able to convince my mother to stay away from gold. She still invests in gold. But, today, if you buy gold in Mumbai and you try to sell it in Dubai same day, then you will end up losing 11.5% purely by way of import duty differential. And if you're buying in smaller denomination, you'll probably end up losing another 25 to 30%. So when people are buying gold through smaller denomination, they are probably going to lose 2-3 years interest or return on it on the day one itself. If you are buying gold by doing a SIP with a roadside jeweler, there is a credit risk involved in it. And most important thing is that people are investing in gold assuming that gold prices never go down. But the history does suggest that gold prices have gone up and down. And more from a country point of view, India cannot afford import of gold like it has been importing in the past.
I also want to talk to you about real estate. You have in the book said don't put all of your eggs in the basket of real estate because it's illiquid, you can't sell it, you can't take the money out if you need to. But I want your advice for those of our viewers who write into us looking to buy their first home. So this is the home they're going to live in. And let's be honest, in any of India's cities right now, if I want to buy a home, I have to liquidate everything else because that's what it costs. Does that amount to putting all of my eggs in one basket?
See, it becomes slightly tricky because first home buy is not an investment. It's an item of day-to-day consumption. So when you're buying your first home, don't treat it as an investment, but do take certain precautions. So one thing is to take adequate insurance on yourself so that tomorrow, God forbid, something happens, your housing loan does not create so much burden on your family. Second thing, you don't over leverage yourself. You only buy house to the extent your salary can afford. The third thing is that when you are trying to buy your first house where you want to stay, then you try to buy from a reputed builder rather than somewhere where the delivery cannot be sure of.
Well, let's talk about fixed income right now, and you've spent a lot of time in the book talking about fixed income. And one of the things that you talk about the most is the post-tax return, because we do have a lot of viewers who think that just putting their money in a fixed deposit is a safe thing to do. Like, for example, the people who write in saying over the last 5 years, this is what my mutual fund has done. But had I put my money in a fixed deposit over the same time, at least I would have gotten 8% or 9% from it. How important is it for us to look at post-tax every time we're looking at a fixed income investment?
So it's extremely important to look at post-tax return on all your investments, not only fixed income but also real estate, also equity. The second thing which one needs to consider is that in fixed income investment you are seeking safety first and liquidity second and return third. You should be always interested on return of principal rather than return on principal. We have seen many a times people losing money in plantation companies' fixed deposits. We have seen many a times people losing money in, Vichy or chit fund as we call it in other parlance. So clearly one has to be very, very cognizant of the credit risk in the fixed income, and which is where bank deposits, tax-free bonds, fixed income mutual funds score over those unregulated investment.
Well, I also want to ask you about just buying an ETF or buying the index. For those of our viewers who find it too complicated to pick a mutual fund manager, to rely on some particular individual to beat the market, does it make more sense then for me to just buy the Nifty or the Nifty Junior or combine the two and just try and track the market?
See, definitely that's something which is worth doing if you're not comfortable with picking up a normal mutual fund scheme. But then you must remember that you'll be losing out on some performance, because we have seen most of the mutual fund managers outperforming benchmark indices quite convincingly. Now, there could be a period where they underperform, but on an overall basis they have outperformed. And if you again come back to Access Direct kind of website where we recommend mutual funds and we don't change it every day, we recommend it over a longer period of time after doing proper research and due diligence. I mean, they clearly outperform indices and index funds and ETFs by a significant margin.
Well, while we're on the topic of long-term asset allocation and we're talking about debt investments, I also want to ask your opinion on the new pension system, the NPS, and the PPF, because these are two options available to all Indians. Liquidity is close to zero because you have to wait for 15 odd years before you can take the money out, but it's tax-free money and it's fairly high in terms of return. How would you rate it among all of the debt options available to us? How would you rate these two options?
So today, public provident fund gives you tax advantage and certain set of return over longer period of time. If I remove the tax advantage out for a second, a tax-free bond today gives better return than PPF. It's far more liquid. I can sell it anytime I want. And tomorrow, if interest rate indeed comes down, my coupon in tax-free bond remains fixed, but my return in PPF can come down. So compared to public provident fund, I think tax-free bonds today provides better opportunity. Who knows, tomorrow could be different thing if tax-free bonds returns or coupon starts coming down. So new pension scheme is a fairly attractive option, and especially someone who does not have provident fund kind of security, they should definitely consider new pension scheme. It has allocation which is towards debt as well as equity. It has a very low expense ratio, and from a investment point of view, it has a lot of other features in terms of convenience. So definitely anyone who is not employed in an organized sector who does not have benefit of provident fund should consider new pension scheme.
Are you impressed with the returns so far on the NPS?
Definitely, the returns have been quite impressive.
All right, we're going to take a very quick break here, but when we come back, we're going to ask Nilesh why he believes, and this is something I agree with, that women are better investors than men. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching Investor's Guide on ET Now. I'm with Nilesh Shah. If you have any questions for him so far on what you've heard on the show, feel free to write to us. Our email ID is at the bottom of your screen. Nilesh, we're talking about your wonderful book, A Direct Take. And in the book, you've equated health and wealth a lot. And this is one portion where you say, it's like the discipline of waking up every morning and going for a jog to stay healthy. Now, this is something we all promise ourselves. We know it's good. We know it's healthy. We all promise ourselves that we're going to get up tomorrow morning and hit the gym, go for a walk, go for a jog. We never actually get around to doing it. Isn't it similar then also with our financial health? These are promises we know we should make, but we never do.
In fact, in the Mahabharata, there is a beautiful couplet. So just before the beginning of the war, Krishna goes to meet Duryodhana to explain him that, don't indulge into unnecessary violence. You give 5 villages to Pandava and I will convince them to abort this war. And then Duryodhana doesn't accept that. At that time, Krishna teaches him that, this is wrong, this is not right. And Duryodhana replies a very, very fine answer. Janami dharmam, nachme pravrutti, janami adharmam, nachme nivrutti. Oh great Krishna, don't teach me what is right. I know exactly what is right, but I can't practice it. And don't tell me what is wrong. I exactly know what is wrong, but I am unable to desist from it. So all of us have that little Duryodhana in our heart, which doesn't allow us to practice what we believe is right, and at the same time allow us to desist from practicing what is wrong. And that Duryodhana we need to control for our better financial health. And the mantras which Krishna can give to us is simple. You have to have regular investment, you have to have discipline in asset allocation, you have to have long-term investment. Just the 3 mantras, regular investment, asset allocation, long-term and discipline, this is good enough to get the nirvana in financial health.
I want to ask you a slightly personal question here. There is a portion in the book where you talk about young people who, when they start working, start spending their money, going out, eating out with friends, buying the latest technology. What were you like when you first started working? Were you disciplined? Did you, manage the asset allocation? Did you start putting money away on the first day?
I made all the mistakes which I have represented in the book. So I was indulged into equity market in 1991 where I lost most of my money. But that was a very, very valuable experience. And as someone mentioned that either you can gain experience at your cost or you can learn from someone else's experience. And this book in some sense is culmination of all the mistakes we have made in our life as an investor so that other people don't have to pay that price.
You've dedicated an entire chapter to women investors here. You've talked about the fact that you believe that women are better investors, and it would help all of the men in the country to seek their wives' advice when putting money away. Take us through why you believe women are better investors.
So one is my own experience. I mean, many a times I have seen that my wife's advice in terms of asset allocation or in terms of stock picking, even though she is an engineer by background and she doesn't understand financial world as much as I understand, but her commonsensical is far, far superior. The second interesting thing which I discovered very recently when I went for my daughter's program, so women have been inherently gifted by God to do multitasking. Imagine a man, man's reaction in a scenario where phone is ringing, kid is crying, the food is getting spoiled, and there is someone knocking at the doorbell. Men will not be able to manage it. Women have been gifted by God to do multitasking. And investment is all about multitasking. You have to consider global factors. You have to consider local factors. You have to consider markets volatility. You have to consider long-term fundamentals. There are so many factors which one has to reconcile. And I think women are far more gifted for managing multitasking, and which is why you should listen to their advice. I have always benefited by listening to my wife.
All right, always listen to your wife. And then that brings me to the next point. A lot of women get very nervous when they start investing because they feel that they don't know, they're not good at the calculations or they're not good at the complicated financial jargon. But it's easy to hire someone to do all of that for you. It's easy to find an advisor, to seek advice. And you've said in the book, don't take anybody at face value, the experts, including the ones who've written this book. How important is it for us to, be slightly circumspect every time we hear free advice?
Definitely. I think it's my money, and at the end of the day, I am responsible for my money. So by listening to the other people, no matter how honest or earnest that guy might be, the markets could be completely different. So it makes sense to take that little extra effort in asking questions, understanding why someone is recommending what he is recommending, and then executing it. That little bit of effort in researching will allow you to hold on to your investment when tide turns against you. That effort will allow you to average yourself more when tide is turning against you. Effectively, in a very, very commonsensical Gujarati, you have to buy low and sell high to make money. Most people buy high and then end up selling low and lose money. So you need to be having that research effort to ensure that you buy low and sell high.
Well, I want to come back to the doctor analogy, and we know that as families, especially when you're picking a family doctor, you spend so much time researching, asking around, making sure he's the right guy to look after your family. What kind of effort should we put in? Will we narrow it down and pick an advisor who will financially advise our families?
So essentially it's related to your experience. I mean, is the guy knowledgeable? Is he having enough infrastructure to back his research? And is he recommending something which is making appeal to me? Is he after his commission or is he after my well-being? I think in very few interactions you'll be able to judge the person in terms of whether he is a good financial planner or a bad financial planner. If he is good, you can continue. If he is bad, don't allow him to come back again.
All right, you've obviously tested the book across various people. One pinch of advice that most of your readers have loved the most, that I'm sure our viewers will love as well. If you were to give us one piece of advice for everybody who's watching right now, what would that be?
My simple advice is that, you have to live with sar utha ke jiyo mentality. To my mother, to my parents, I was the retirement solution. But I don't want my kids to be my retirement solution. I want to be financially independent, and we owe to ourselves to manage our money well. We all spend 24/7 in business, in jobs to make money. But if we take good care of our wealth, then to that extent that burden will be lesser. So let's manage our money well. We become a wise investor from a good saver.
All right, a wise investor from a good saver. Nilesh, thank you so much for spending time with us. Now, the book Direct Take is available in bookstores right now. And if you have questions for Nilesh about anything you heard on the show or you read in the book, feel free to write to us and we'll take your questions to him. Thanks for watching.